All right. What do you say we dive into this one? The first thing on the agenda, and I had a LinkedIn post about it a couple weeks ago, but the title of the header bar of the post was why get a demo ads don't work, and then inside of the post it didn't really fully explain it. I actually got quite a few questions in the comments, like I wish this was talking a little bit more about it or different things like that. And so we're going to go through it. We're going to go through why direct response, specifically direct response paid social ads for complex B2B sales, do not generate revenue. Because I've done this myself for 5 years. I go in and analyze companies that do it because it's very easy to get $300 leads, $200 leads on LinkedIn, $50 to $100 leads on Facebook that fit your ICP firmographically, whether you enrich them through Facebook or whether you just get them direct on LinkedIn. And they're like, this person's perfect. They work at this enterprise company with 5,000 employees. They're the director of sales, exactly who we sell to. And then your people call and they don't get to SQL, or you get a meeting scheduled and then they no show, or they get to the meeting and then it doesn't go any further. And that's going to happen to probably only 3% will actually even get to that meeting on that tactic. People can go and look at their data and see. And then if you look at the 3% from there, they're probably going to win at less than 10%. And so you can see if you're spending $300 leads and going through that whole process, it's going to be very, very inefficient. So why doesn't it work? That is the real question here. And so when you think about it, you need to think about psychology. You need to think about the level of intent that that person has in buying your enterprise SaaS tool when they log into Facebook, when they log into LinkedIn. They logged into LinkedIn to get some advice about something, to connect with their network, to see new people. If you're selling to sales, they're probably trying to sell stuff. They're not thinking about buying the 100K ACV SaaS tool that you're trying to push them into a demo for. And so then when you present the ad, it's almost like an impulse buy. E-commerce, $60 pair of shoes. Like you can get an impulse buy on something direct response like that. When you have a sales motion behind it, you know, impulse, this looks super cool. That video was great. I'm going to convert on this form. And then once the SDR cadence happens, and that's going to happen anywhere between 5 minutes if you're good, and it's going to happen in with over 48 hours if you're not good. And by the time you get to there, that person's like already on to something way new in their day. Even if it's 5 minutes, they've already passed by your stuff. And they are not going to champion the sale of an expensive multi-stakeholder product over a 90 to 180 day sales cycle because of that. There's just not enough intent for them to carry that through. And so you lose them along the process because it's a huge commitment. And so you get the lead, but when you look further, they actually don't materialize. Like the data's right there. I look at enough companies to know that this tactic doesn't work. And if it did, then like I say all the time, none of us would be here. We would just be doing that, right? You can just get enterprise sales by running cold targeted, get a demo ads, retargeted, get a demo ads. It just doesn't play out like that. So would love, I imagine that sparked some questions. I know some people have tried this, would love to hear what we got.
There's a lot of chatter about Girl Scout cookies going on right now.
Oh yeah. Ashley's in here trying to peddle a couple more Girl Scout cookies.
For that, you know, it's pretty smart. I think that record sales are happening over Demand Gen Live.
I'm happy to be a participant in that. If there's like we can try and put it in the podcast, like notes, Ashley, if you want, we can get you a couple more sales.
So funny. No, people are complaining because it's not letting them buy internationally.
You're going
global.
I know we have India, Australia on the line.
Find a local troop. There are Girl Scouts all over the world.
Okay.
And Canada.
Let's reel it in, people.
We'll reel it in.
I'm so sorry.
Hey, don't worry. If I find a distributor, I'll send it over. I'll send over the link. You know?
Okay.
Why don't we jump to one of the questions submitted in advance?
Yeah, let's do that.
Does that sound good? Jessica, let's bring you on the air. You sent in.
Jessica's here. Great.
Yeah, you sent in a question, and you sort of did the quick question, but then also elaborated on some context. So why don't you kind of set the stage and ask your question? It's great to have you on.
Sure.
By the way, congrats on your new job. I think we all got to shout it out. I saw you just got a new job recently. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Congrats.
Okay, so my question is, do cost per lead programs or content syndication programs have a place in the marketing mix? And the context is we're marketing to marketers, so I feel like they know that game. And they often are great to fill the funnel, but just wondering like if we think this is worth the cost per lead, or because oftentimes like you'll call those leads and they have no idea what you're talking about, or they don't remember downloading the content. So just wondering if there's any place for those types of programs, or if it depends on the vendor you're using or the vertical you're targeting. Just wanted to know what your thoughts were.
How much do you pay per lead? I'm curious.
Like $50.
That's about the number that I always hear. So I don't want to give like a really firm answer, because I'm sure that there's somewhere where it might work. But the idea of these people coming through, not understanding your brand, downloading content on an external site that's like kind of hidden, and then they push you the lead, and then you do cold outreach or put them into nurtures and think that you're going to convert them is just completely unrealistic, right? Like that's the response you get. If you run direct response, get a demo ads, you get that response a lot. I don't remember filling out that form. What company are you from again? I've never heard of you. You hear those types of responses when you actually call people. Mm-hmm. And so using that sequence of tactics does not work. I go in and analyze plenty of companies that are 2,000 leads, 5,000 leads a year that are in that and might close one, and they just have the one because they got lucky, right? Like at some point there's like this law of variation where you might get one, which goes into something else that I had posted about recently, which is like a lot of tactics that marketers use work just enough to keep doing them, like just enough to justify 1, 2, 3 deals a year. But my thought on like that approach is no, like, especially as it gets more and more complex of a sale. What I will say is a lot of our customers tag this as syndication in their CRM, but I consider it an aggregator, which is quite different. And so several of our customers are having really good success using software advice, which I don't consider content syndication. I consider it a lead aggregator. 300 that you might pay a little bit more for the lead depending on how competitive the category is. $200 a lead, $50 a lead, same thing, except they're already qualified and they're looking to buy exactly what you're selling, and they push you that lead, and you can win those at somewhere between 4 and 10%, depending on how good you are and where you fit in your category and speed to lead and a lot of things like that. And so I would recommend that tactic, which has lower lead volume, but they're way better, right? It's almost the same price, but they're just way better leads. When we talk about filling the funnel on content syndication, what it does is it fills the top of the funnel, because they don't get any farther than that. And I look at this in trailing 12-month data, right? So like if somebody submitted that form on January 1st, I'm looking at the 90-day sales cycle of whether they converted 12 months forward, right? Into a customer or an opportunity. And you just don't see it almost at all. And so you're just creating more contacts in your CRM that are going through processes that are just not really interested in buying. And so when I look at like things like content syndication at a high level, you don't need somebody else to access your audience. You can go and get them yourself, right? Like it's the same thing that I say about trade shows. Like, yeah, you can build that booth for $100,000 and have 100 people stop by, but how else could you spend that $100,000 to get those 100 people to talk to you? And that's the thing. Those are the things that I think about. So happy to answer a follow-up, but I love this topic, and we haven't gone into too much detail, and I'm like pretty clear that it doesn't work.
Yeah, I know. And that was my gut reaction. I think especially when the target audience is marketers, and that's a tactic that I've used in previous industries, and it hasn't been successful. So I think it would be even less successful when marketers are the target.
Yeah, I know people that run it too. Sales, finance, CISOs, like it really doesn't matter in my view. So that's the idea. We're testing a couple things with quote unquote syndication, or like however you want to look at that, which is trying to get someone to enter a gated long form content hub, like weekly videos get published and you can get like credits, like continuing education credits and stuff like that. To get someone into something like that might be more aligned with what they're actually trying to do. But like I do this myself. Like I go to whatever it is, like Serious Decisions or Gartner, whoever else is doing this stuff, and they make me fill out like 100 form fields to download their ABM guide. That sucks. You know what I mean? So
Questions are rolling in.
yeah, I would give you an alternative, because you can run a lot of other things with $50 to get someone to consume content. If you need the email address to justify that $50, then you're gonna have to do like direct response content download on LinkedIn. But I would recommend, like, with campaigns that are going well, we're getting like $15 case study reads, $15 product page reads on LinkedIn, which I think is just a better use of money.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Happy to help, Jess. Good to see you.
Thanks, Jessica. Let's bring Anna on. You've thrown out a couple of good questions, kind of building on what we've been talking about. Do you want to come on and you can ask both of the ones that you just posted in the chat, Anna?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So I think.
What's up, Anna? Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So I was just wondering, I think first, what's some effective bottom of funnel lead magnets you've seen from B2B tech companies?
So I don't like the term lead magnet, just generally, because I think it sets the wrong sort of expectation. Because what a lead magnet usually is the higher up in the funnel that you're going to get, the more leads you're going to get, and then you're going to try and shove them through either marketing automation or a sales cadence. And as you get more and more narrow, my feeling on all of this is it would be way easier to create good content and distribute it effectively and just let people make their own decisions. Like, I've been thinking about that for a while. If you have a good product and people understand the value and all of those things at a very detailed level, then they have way more affinity to buy the product. And so why don't you just be able to show them those things? I know, like, a lot of people that run lead magnets, I think that they worked a lot better in 2011 than they do now. But I'll try and give you a good answer, because I basically just deflected the question. So maybe you and I aren't aligned on bottom funnel. And so when I think of bottom funnel, like, I'm thinking demo request, you know?
Yeah.
And so if we're moving it up higher, I think it really depends on understanding the audience. I think the one that people have been telling me, I don't do a lot of these things, but one that people have been telling me that works very well is a proprietary first party market research study. And in that way, you get the market research study. Hopefully you find like 3 or 4 or 10 great things. You can take that into a long form. You can publish that. You can gate it if you'd like to. And then what I do is I take all of the key stats and I break them into short form blogs and I distribute them on paid Facebook typically. And so, 75% of marketers are struggling with this, our study finds, or something like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just got our product team to pull a bunch of platform data that we could publish as like proprietary insight. We're in education. So if you look into school recovery for COVID, we're a payment processing platform for independent schools. But which kind of brings me to my next question is, we've been looking at some third-party advertising sites like NCEA, which is like the National Catholic Education Association, or the ISM, Independent School Management. Then there's like a Montessori one. And so it would allow us to create really targeted ads for audiences on these sites. So we were just I wanted to know like what your thought was for that and how you've seen it done effectively, if at all.
What are you trying to accomplish?
I mean, I think the marketing answer, versus sales is like, we're a startup. So we just there's not a lot of like awareness of our company out there. So my goal would just be to frame us as like a solution or an expert in the field. We're creating tons of content. We're really active on our social media and our blog. We're running ads as well, but just allowing us to get our brand in front of our ICPs.
Mm-hmm. Is it going to be like a banner?
I have to meet with the different platforms I set up initial meetings. So there's like ad banners, there's like embeds in their newsletter where we could like link to content, for example. There's stuff on their website. We could be listed as like a sponsor at a virtual event. So there's tons of options.
How much do you think you're going to pay for this?
I think it's going to range anywhere, if I had to guess, from like 500 to 2,500.
Yeah, I remember this is like 2014 timeframe. I remember taking like the place that has the most popular industry conference and doing a banner ad spot for like $2,000 a month and putting a tracking URL and looking at it, and we got like 30 clicks. You know what I mean? And so I'm ultimately going to leave this one up to you, and I encourage you, especially at that price point, you probably should run it and test it, right? Like you can put a URL on there. HubSpot knows if you're using HubSpot or a different one, they know where the referral traffic's coming from. You can easily quantify that, and then maybe you can come back to us and report on it. Would love that.
Yeah, because I think we're having some trouble with Facebook ads in terms of segmenting based off of like the school type they're at. So like this is like our way of trying to segment a little further, because like the needs of an independent school they're usually the same, but they like to think they're really different between an independent school and a Catholic school, for example. So
yeah, one thing this is like real recent stuff for people is that it's been happening for a while, but it's happening really bad right now, is that since like big election push happened, crossed right into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, crossed right into holiday season, and Instagram and Facebook advertisers are going like this on the gas, and the prices are going up significantly. Like Facebook versus LinkedIn is not that as dramatic as I was talking about a while ago. And so we're right now able to get LinkedIn CPMs down to like $55, and Facebook CPMs for some objectives are like somewhere between 18 and 30. And so at that point, I would take a very narrow account list with your people into LinkedIn for an audience size of like 1,000 to 5,000 people. And I would run that. And you could, if you think about the CPM value of that, that's $250 to hit with one impression, a 5,000 person audience, $250. You could put out 8 pieces of content at the same price of that banner ad for a month.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Cool. Looking forward. Hopefully, I mean, maybe you go in the LinkedIn direction, but if not, I would love to hear what you find with the banners.
Hey, Chris, a follow up on what Anna just asked. Would you maybe suggest her something organic?
Like what, Prince? What are you after?
I mean, no, I'm not after anything. General.
Yeah. I'm interested. Like
sure.
SEO or organic social, or like
no, just collaborations. Like, you know, I'm seeing a lot of ed tech companies. I'm personally on the hunt for a partner at the moment for PrideX, and I'm seeing a lot of these ed tech companies partnering with various conferences that are happening, or they partner up with some trainers that are famous, coaches that are famous, and then the same thing that we have going here, and you encourage people to do, like podcasts and talk shows. In EdTech, they can add a lot of value. Example, Products by Women New York. They do a lot of these webinars where they bring in product experts, and then they're basically distributing their content to educate people in product, and that drives sales for them. So
I love that. I do that a lot. It's funny. I was thinking about kind of like it's almost 2021, and I'm like talking about B2B influencer marketing right now. And then I look back, and in 2014, we were doing agreements with emergency medicine physicians to present clinical data about our product at conferences, which is B2B influencer marketing like 6 years ago. And I just put the pieces together. It's like crazy. They call it KOLs in those types of industries, pharma, medical device. We've been running that stuff for almost a decade, and now like tech SaaS is starting to kind of feel it. But anyway, I love the approach of of in a small company starting a podcast and interviewing or talking with industry influencers. And if it's a video podcast, you can do both and chop it in a lot of different ways. The challenge in a lot of small venture funded tech companies is they are not going to give you enough time for that to actually show results.
Yeah, if it's venture funded, for sure.
You're going to end up getting fired before it actually has the chance to move the needle.
Yep.
And so that's why I posted about it earlier. And I think it's really helpful for a lot of people because I get this question a ton, especially from like sub 2 million ARR companies that are Series A, like just raised a Series A and want to start a podcast. It's like, you need to be putting sales qualified opportunities in at a rate that's going to help you hit your revenue target so you can go and raise a B before you do a podcast.
Yeah, no, for sure. Even Series C, like people put targets, okay, I do want 20% ROI, or they'd even define your technology like, okay, you got to start doing AI. Like I recently heard about a company that has been in the market for 17 years and they were doing remote support and they did have some form of augmented reality built up. I mean, augmented reality. And now they got like some millions of dollars in Series C, and then they're looking at product thinking and then AI and blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, all the good jazz, which is important. But I'm curious as to, you've been in the market for 17 years. Why didn't you do it before? Like, why now? And then you find out that 5 months ago they got funded. So yeah, that makes sense, you know.
Cool. I got one I'm gonna hit on here, Prince, and then maybe we'll get a couple more questions through. I know we have a couple more cooking. Did anyone that Megan, did anyone that asked a question are they on live?
Yeah, I always look for that. I'm checking on some of the other ones that were submitted.
Check on that. I'll cover this one. I think I might have touched on it, but I'm like trying to really drive it home because it's becoming more and more obvious as I keep going into data and I keep talking to companies. So what sparks this is that I'm talking to a $300 million ARR company about working together, and they are, I asked them what they're spending on social and search, and they're like, yeah, we're doing a little bit on LinkedIn. And then I asked them what they're spending on search, and they're like, we're spending $1 million a quarter on search, and it's our best performing channel. And I'm like, okay, so I go in and see enough search like implementations at $1 million a quarter at your type of narrow company that I know you're wasting a ton of money. And then you actually look, and if you go in there and people assess, what they're going to find is that normally in those types of implementations, success is measured typically on MQL content downloads for non-branded terms. And then they're going to attribute all the revenue to branded search and not break it up. Like I go into companies, they're like, we won 14 deals from paid search last year. And I'm like, yeah, but they were all exact match branded search. You know what I mean? And you spent $400,000 on it. And so it's dangerous with that type of, that's paid search. Now I'm just talking about in general. Again, we talked about direct response level of intent. And now let's talk about why Google takes all the credit, because in complex buying cycles, people pass through Google to buy something, and Google will get all the credit. I look at companies that have 70% of their marketing sourced revenue coming through organic search, and they think that SEO is the thing that's moving the needle there. And what's actually moving the needle is 6 of their happy customers over there telling other people about it, and those people coming through branded search and clicking the first link and asking for a demo. What's actually driving it is they saw 7 Facebook ads, and then they came through and searched for it, looked at the value proposition and converted. Or they went to this thing and they saw your ad and then they did this, or they saw your content, or they talked to this person and then they passed through. And so I want people to be very, very careful about how they think about that overall channel, because way too much money, especially on last touch attribution. And it's weird because on a lot of these cycles, last touch and first touch attribution are going to be the same. And there's no other stuff happening before it as far as your visible marketing automation system can tell. And so it's just one pass through to conversion, and they give a lot of credit. And so I want people to think about it. Google is an intent channel. It's going to catch all of those different things, just like Capterra gets a lot of credit, just like the stuff like G2 and other places. People are looking for your stuff. It's going to get the most credit because it's the most easily measurable. That's how those companies make money. So think about how you can do things in other places to have more people come through that path. And then I had something else that I really wanted to touch on, but I forgot.
We have a couple questions that were submitted by people that aren't able to make it. I think they're in a time zone where it's
Yeah.
really late or really early. But I know Rowan threw out a question around curious about your thoughts on LinkedIn events. So maybe we can dive into that, and then I can ask a couple of questions on behalf of some folks that couldn't make it.
Would love that.
I see you, Rowan. Maybe come and build on that a little
Yeah,
bit.
come on, Rowan. First off, I just got to say, I mean, you can come on in, but I got to say, I get probably 10 invites to some LinkedIn event in my as a connection request every day for the past year. I haven't accepted one of them, 0. And so you can send them. I just think it looks like spam. It's also like, can you follow my page? I personally don't respond to any of those things, but that probably wasn't the question you're asking, Rowan. So let's get on here. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think, are you muted?
We had some late arrivers here. Rowan, where you at, homie? He's not muted, but we can't hear him. He called in.
In the chat, like, yeah, there.
All right, let's hear it. All right, Megan, maybe you read the question
For that. Cool. That's what he wrote in. I know he might be trying to, let's switch gears. You can write in your additional elaboration and we can get back to it. Matthew had a question. Let's jump and we'll come back to you, Rowan. Going back to your first point on demo ads, if you do retarget ads and send them to demo pages, how do you decide when that's appropriate, if ever?
My entire theory on this, and it's a theory, but it's driven by 5 years of experimentation and doing this, knowing that like you have to put pieces of data together in a lot of different places. It's not all coming together. And so with this, if you actually just look, even if you have someone in a retargeting audience and drive them into whether it's a native lead gen form or an on-site squeeze landing page or whatever, like I don't want that person to convert there because I know the level of intent is not high enough to move a complex sale forward. And so I would much prefer that we do enough work where they actually take the action that I just talked about, where they understand our product, they understand our differentiation, they understand the pains that we solve. They ideally know about how much the product costs. They've talked to 6 of their coworkers about it and they're all on board. And they come on to a computer and they say, I would like a demo. That's what I want to happen because the conversion rates are so much better. And so adjusting your marketing mix to make all that happen, we try pretty hard not to convert people on mobile for that reason, just because I don't want, when you have let's say you have 300 leads coming through and 150 of them are coming through that flow and they're going to convert to customers at 0.2, 0.3%. And then you have your website demo requests that are going to convert to customers at 6, 7, 10%. And you put them together and the SDRs don't know which is which. That's the problem. And so, yes, we do have people that convert on mobile. The UTMs are there. I will take an action to go and look because we run enough in media to know to segment. And I will report back next week on the win rates. Angelica, if you could take that down. I will take a customer that we've been spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on Facebook ads and look at the people that converted and how they move through the funnel versus the demo form. And I'll fact check my own assumptions because that was what I found when I was running this in about 2018, and I haven't gone back to it since. And I expect the result will be the same, if not worse. But we'll see.
So I was able to message a bit with Rowan. He said you might have pretty much addressed it. He was curious if LinkedIn events would be a good way to, break through the noise. It sounds like though it could be pretty much the same as like an email or a connection request. I know I get a lot of them too, and I pretty much just ignore them.
Yeah.
Anything to add to close that out?
No, I'm good.
I'm
good.
Max, I think you're building on what we were just talking about. You're
Let's
asking.
do it, Max.
Yeah, come on. You can.
Yeah. What's up, guys? So yeah, just curious if you have the same feelings towards like free trial ads for a B2B SaaS product.
No way.
Okay, cool. I was just making sure.
So yeah, I need to do a lot better job clarifying on this stuff, because what we're finding is that the go-to-market, like actual marketing strategy between product-led and sales motion is 100% different. It's like, it's not even close. And so the problem with the sales-led motion and the get a demo is that you need to go on 6 calls, get several other stakeholders on board, figure out what the price is, understand the landscape, try and get your procurement team on, go to 7 demos, try and convince your CEO, and you're just not going to, you don't have enough intent, and you don't have enough of a demonstrable pain to go through that process. On product-led, hey, come and get a free trial. So give us 2 forms and then let our growth strategy through email and other things take over. Like, it's just way different. So I'm a buyer of, if you can do it well, paid social, direct response. I still believe that your funnel metrics from sign up into paying user will be less in that channel than, say, an organic or even like a branded search or something like that that happens on desktop. I feel like those would be different, but that's an assumption. But to get people into the product, high intent search, as long as the economics can work, like you can go and get a ton of free trial signups. That way I watch companies that spend $200,000 and drive a ton of garbage into that form. So just be careful, because like I've talked to enough companies that are work with OpenView and OpenView pushes product led, to also know that OpenView pushes spending ridiculous amounts of money on paid search to drive as many signups as possible, regardless of the funnel metrics. They're only looking top of funnel from there, hoping that they eventually materialize, just going for a land grab. And that's fine, because they're a very successful firm and they understand what happens and they know what the valuations are, and they can be very inefficient. And that's just not the way that I like to play it, but it clearly can work. And then paid social, if you can figure it out right, 1 minute square video, even like we're trying out LinkedIn on a product led. It's a little bit more expensive than I like, but like I said, the CPMs are changing. And so we're going to fact check it there, especially with very narrow audiences. And then if you can hit it right, swipe up Instagram story. There's a ton of different places in those two, as long as you have the targeting on Facebook and Instagram, especially when January rolls around and CPMs go back from $18 to $22 back down to $6 to $9. Like, that's going to be a good place for you. Right on. Great question. And I need to clarify that more often.
We had another question submitted in advance by Karen. They're in the UK though, so not on, and kind of along the same theme that we're talking about around paid social. So let me read it on their behalf. When should you run sponsored in-feed paid social ads versus boost organic social posts? What do you perceive as the benefits of one over the other?
100% dark social ads, always. No boosted posts. Boosted posts, and Karen, this is not a knock on you, but it's just a lazy way. It's just a lazy way to go about it. Like, inside of Ads Manager in either LinkedIn or Facebook Ads Manager, you can go in and you can make 10 variations of the ad. And then you can see how different the data is based on whether you use this headline or another headline, whether the creative has this versus this. And so with boosted posts, you only get one shot and you've already put it out organically. It's typically like it's a entry level marketers kind of like play, but go in there and you can set up the targeting, you get better inventory with ads. And then you can test a bunch of different versions. And then what I used to do on Facebook, the dynamics are different, so I just don't do it anymore because it's not really worth the time. But in 2015, I would run 10 to 30 variations of ads, depending on how much we were spending. And then I would get whichever the best performing ad was, I would start running what the budget based on that one until the frequency cap happened. And then I would take that post with 1.2 thousand likes, and then I would post that organically to our 20,000 person audience. And that was a great play in Facebook 2015. It doesn't really work like that anymore. It's just not really worthwhile. And so I'm a big fan of always using dark posts first, because of the use of the variations. Because when you actually go in and run it, you will recognize how much of a difference like a picture or a couple words in the headline can actually make.
All right, that's for you, Karen. She'll be listening later. Our good friend Ashley has a question. Let's bring you on, Ashley, and then I can ask another question.
Austin,
that was submitted.
we're gonna get one from you, right? All right, cool.
Okay, so I've got two products that are best found or most easily found on marketplaces.
Mhm.
So like Shopify Marketplace and then like the Recharge Marketplace within Shopify.
Yep.
Websites are important and we can do a lot of jazzy things, exciting on websites, but I wondered if you had any tips on marketplace listing sites to differentiate from when they go on Shopify and they search that category. Because we're going to run ads there, but we want to somehow stand out.
I don't love answering questions that I don't really know a lot about, and this is one of them. It's just not a place where I have a ton of experience, and I don't want to say something that's not true. And so I'm going to kind of deflect this one, but I'll give you a couple ideas. I don't know whether or not they're going to work, but I'll give you a couple ideas. The way that I go through a marketplace: search in the marketplace and then reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're actually like in the marketplace, you don't find the product and then kind of move it into the app or the extension. There's two different paths. If you're in the marketplace, search and reviews is probably the way to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you look at like, I'm trying to think of a good example, like Klaviyo is the only one I can think about right now, where like I wish I knew more about what the company actually does, but they're based in Boston. I know what they do in general. I wish I knew what they did to get to where they are, aside from raising a ridiculous amount of money. But people know about them before they get to the marketplace, right? And so I think there's two different strategies here. There's like a branding play up front where you're trying to get people to know about what you do specifically for whatever app you're connected with. And then you have this like tactical search and review optimization when someone searches, email automation for Shopify or whatever they would search. Ideally, you come up one with 1,000 reviews better than all of your competitors.
So create demand outside of the marketplace in addition to optimizing the marketplace.
Yeah, as long as it makes sense economically for stuff like that. I don't know what the price points are, but oftentimes you'd want to go organic to begin with. It was interesting. I was on another podcast this morning, and somebody was asking. It was like a solopreneur, and the question was, I'm doing a certain thing. I have an online business. I'm selling at 10K. I have 10K a month in revenue, and I'm trying to go to 20K next year. I think I should be doing ads. And I was like, no, you shouldn't. One, you should raise your target from 10K a month to 100K a month. You should have a bigger target than just going from 10 to 20 is my first recommendation, just because I think it changes your mindset. And then the second piece is that you can get from 10 to 20 organic. You don't need to use paid for that. And if you use paid, you're actually just going to crush your margin. And so the only reason that's relevant to you is because it may not make sense to run ads depending on your revenue model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was trying to challenge myself to somehow stand out in the listing so that it's not just bullet point, like to somehow spin the content. Like, when you go on a website and you notice it's different, especially when you're looking at a lot of the same products.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to figure out what might just resonate, even if it's our graphics or it's our way of like some different tone of language, because a lot of it kind of feels like e-commerce sales copy.
I would focus on intent channels.
Okay.
And so like inside of the marketplace, and then try and win for blah, blah, blah extension for blah.
Mm-hmm.
Like try and either in Google organic or paid, and then when you get to organic results, and do something like that. But that's something where, you can do a lot of work outside so people know about you. But in general, like I need this, and it's a very like niche thing you probably want to be in. You probably want to win that in Google.
Mind if I chime in? Just a couple suggestions.
Let's hear it, Prince.
Definitely not as experienced as Chris, but I used to be a developer for e-commerce platforms. Depending on the platform that you have, they generally have cross-sell, upsell linkings that you could do. And then even product suggestions based on category. If you have some kind of configuration that allows that when people are on other products page, your product will come up as a suggestion. And graphic wise, we'll try, new. And if you go on Prime, they say Prime enabled and things like that. Just, tiny bit of ads, but it does make your product stand out. And definitely what Chris is talking about, intent channels, definitely a value add, because there'll be thousands of, like you were talking about Shopify, they will have a ton of products, a ton of marketplaces as well, because they encourage people to go on and create their stores. So standing out in there, unless the platform itself pricing and inexpensive, given your price, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, one of them, all the leads come directly because it's through Recharge, which is a subscription Shopify tool. So we're like the first listed upcoming shipping notification product that they have listed on there. So a lot of leads come in through there, but the page is kind of just lackluster right now, and I want to overhaul it, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it stand out.
It's probably your most important page for the product, honestly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let us know how it goes.
Thanks.
Happy to help, Ashley. Great to see you. Are we going to see the, oh my gosh, I forgot her name. The Girl Scout girl?
I will get Josie. I tried to like, yeah.
Can't wait.
I love how Matt's laughing as if your child is not right behind you.
We got a couple,
she's not anymore.
we got a couple ones, a couple other ones on ads. I also want to, we'll save it for a finale, but how to choose the right company as a demand marketer, I think is a good topic, but there's a couple more tactical ones that are on. Hey, Josie.
Say hey. He said
So
hello.
let's do these.
Yeah, let's bring Matthew on. You're on fire with your questions tonight.
Yeah, I just have a lot of Facebook ad curiosity. I'll do the audience size one first, and I'll tell you specifically exactly what the scenario was. I was basically building a test audience out for a client potentially, and I was looking at dentists. That was exactly what I was looking for. People with the job title dentist.
Great demo to target on Facebook for sure.
Let me get into that though, because like I go into the suggestions bar to find it. Facebook's telling me 243,000 people kind of with that job title. So I plug it in, and then it's telling me the ad preview that the audience size is actually like 4,000. So how do you level with that kind of discrepancy? Which number do you trust? Are they both not worth trusting? What do you do when that happens?
So inside of the suggestion,
yeah, that's what
going to be the total amount of people in the world that have that amount. And then once you put it in the ad preview on the top, it's going to show you with all of your additional filters in the United States between 28 and 44 that speak English, that do this, and then it's going to cut all of them down.
Gotcha.
So that's the difference. The solution for you is finding more things. American Association of Dentistry, study dentistry in as a field of study, dentist job title. Just go and get extra ones, and you'll move that up, and then just go and look. There's probably some type of data that tells you how many dentists are in the United States, and just try and get close to that. Stay away from interests. It's going to be complete garbage. And so field of study, professional association, job title. Some people have it as their employer too. Sure. And so those are the ways that you could get that done. And then once you have the pixel data, just throw on audience expansion to a smart objective, and then you can go and cover anyone else that you want if you have a lot of budget.
For sure. All right, good to know. I was like wondering.
Yeah, I know it's confusing me. Yeah, it confused me a couple of times recently too. I'm like, 500,000
I usually don't run into that problem. That's the first time it happens. I was just like, I'll just ask you.
Yeah, solution. Yeah, problem solved. Cool.
Did you have one from earlier too, Matthew? I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess my other question was, you talk about doing 10 to 30 creative variations on Facebook. Do you take the same approach with LinkedIn? Do you create less? Do you create more? If so, why?
So on product creative, typically we'll run on Facebook and then use the learnings on Facebook to do a better set of versions on LinkedIn. So for product, we're going to do both. A lot of other things are just happening on Facebook. It also has to do with the amount of budget being spent, right? So I'm not going to make 30 variations of an ad if we're going to spend $500 on it. I'm going to run one variation typically. But when we're going to go out and we're going to do a brand campaign for 25K on LinkedIn, I'm going to run 6 versions of the carousel with 2 variations of a headline and 2 versions of body copy, which is going to give you like 24 versions. The challenge with LinkedIn, I will add, is it feels is that having too many variations may actually be bad because you can't get through a learning phase with enough data to know which one's working the best. And so recently we've moved, like the most recent carousel one I took learnings from Facebook where we had like, I don't know, 18, I'm guessing, but probably like 18 variations. And now we're running 6 on LinkedIn. And within $1,000 on LinkedIn, you can be like, that copy doesn't work. This headline doesn't work. This picture is the one to run. This picture, this headline, this copy, go. And so the thing on LinkedIn is try and figure out what is the best performing variation as quickly as possible because it's expensive.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool. Happy to help.
We have a good question from Andy. Do you want to come on and ask your question, Andy?
Yeah, sure. Hey, what's going on? Good to see you.
Hey, Andy. Is this your first time here? No.
Yeah, it's been a little while, but
yeah, good to have you back.
Yeah, no, it's good to be back. Question for you. I asked probably about 2 months ago and I couldn't make it. I was really bummed because you started to get into it, but I didn't really give you enough context. So
cool.
We're looking at Facebook advertising. I'm marketing to marketers, essentially. So marketing managers, directors, VPs, and then CEOs/founders. So we're marketing to businesses that are typically 1 to 50 employees, 5 million ARR or less. We're B2B service providers are our target audience. So what G2 is for software providers, that's what UpCity is, essentially a marketplace for B2B service providers.
I need a apps
web designer
consultant.
and
I need a web design. Yeah, got it. Okay, cool.
We're that kind of business. Our starting
it's a connector and you just take a transaction fee or something. Yeah.
No, it's similar to G2. People come to check out reviews, understand kind of the different options in their market, and then they can request more information directly from our sites. We've got different tiers of partnership ultimately, and the most common one typically starts at around 150 a month. So it's definitely more entry level, low AC. Facebook advertising is something that I think we need to dip our toes into a little bit. We're really strong on Google. The emphasis has been on SEO for our company for the last 10 plus years. So we've got really good presence on Google, but we haven't really dipped our toes in another channel. So I'm just curious on your thoughts. With that low of an ACV, I needed to somehow be a direct response to justify spending money, or else it's going to get off to justify. I don't think like a straight up demo request for a cold person seeing our ad, even if it's got customer testimonial quotes, is the way to go. So I'm curious on your thoughts. Like, is it some sort of ad that's talking through a pain point and then pushing them to a landing page that talks more into how UpCity helps with those pain points with an opportunity to convert? Or like, how would you leverage Facebook in that scenario? Like a cost per lead perspective, more of a CPC, and let's get them to the content, understand if people are actually engaging it and then converting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one.
So how big is your company? You can tell me in like a revenue range or an employee range, whichever you feel most comfortable. And then I need to know whether or not is it funded or profitable?
It's 30 employees. Funding is minimal. We haven't relied heavily on VC. We are profitable.
Okay. So what I would do is I would run a podcast in LinkedIn organic to try and communicate the things that help people either have one centered around companies that are less than 50 employees and all the things they need to figure out. At 15 employees, you probably need this tax person. At this amount, you probably need this payroll solution. At this amount, you probably want to start to build a website. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I would start to do things like that. Like I'm learning things like, at 20 employees, like, especially if you have remote employees, payroll really sucks. Like those are things that I wish someone told me before that, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that would be the play, because just the math is going to be incredibly hard to make work on Facebook. The real only option I feel like for you is a retargeting play.
Okay. So I guess that leads kind of into Matthew's questions. We do get a lot of people that come inbound. Obviously, most people naturally won't convert at an inbound form. So would you say then, is Facebook maybe a better option if we're going to use it to retarget those people getting to our main inbound page but don't convert, and then push them to some kind of page like that?
I still don't try and convert, especially with what you have going on. Like if you can close a lot of deals in one call, then then maybe give it a shot. But I know companies that have one call close or 7-day sales cycles that are 2 calls and still have a lot of trouble with this. Okay. Just because you have to think about how much it's going to cost you to acquire a customer and literally just build the model. And I just am we struggle at like 4K ACV to make that work. I find the cutoff to like do some of the things the way that I do them to be somewhere in the 15 to 20K ACV range. Just because there needs to be enough room to do it that way. And because you don't have this like tangible set of leads that becomes a fixed cost per lead. So I would go personally the podcast organic route, especially what you told me, 30 employees, profitable business. Like,
Yep.
you can inject ads if you like. I would run the retargeting stuff. I would try that thing. I always like, this is stuff like every customer asks me, can we do retargeting to get a demo ads? And every time I'm like, it's not going to work, but I'll do it if you want. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. We want 50 leads. And I do it and it doesn't work. So
Sure. No, that makes sense. No, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Cool. Happy to help.
Great question, Andy. We have one that was submitted in advance that I feel like I should get in. And then we have a great question from Austin. So we'll bring him on. It doesn't
Nice.
look
He's
like...
going to ask it with his microphone.
Oh, yeah. It's going to look awesome. It doesn't look like Danny is on the line, so I'll ask this on their behalf. I know you're a huge metadata fan. What do you love about it? What are your favorite use cases? I'm in the process of evaluating it right now.
Cool. And this is a great question. I know Danny, congratulations on her job. Like, I literally tried to hire her for like 6 months, and she was like, no, I want to continue to be a freelancer, but I knew it was important for her to work for a company that she believed in. I'm happy she found that. So that's great. Now, on this question, I really want to clarify, because I know a lot of people listen to the things that I say about metadata, and there are two very important things that people need to know. The first one is that there are two kind of components of the metadata platform. One is the targeting, which I love. So that's one piece. And the other part is this like autonomous performance marketing system, which we do not use, and I'm not a fan of because it just doesn't align with how I do marketing. And so I just want to make that clear. The full package is mainly to run performance marketing conversion-based things and then enrich them and then push them into Salesforce, which is not my style. But however, on the audience targeting side, I love it. Like, and Clearbit is an alternative. We've looked at Clearbit as well. But I really like the tool. Like, ever since we started using that, it gets us a lot more quality. I just want to be able to clarify, because I had to do this in DM a couple of times before this, to clarify, is that we don't use their the full system just because we don't do performance marketing a lot. So the things that I love, being able to go in and say, here's a custom account list. Like, I want to target everyone that works in marketing that's a director of on Facebook and Instagram. Love that. Being able to go and replicate a LinkedIn audience inside of Facebook using that tool. Love it. I think that people that are spending, I would say like probably $25K a month or more on paid social ads should think about investing in one of those. I'm sure that there are other ones, but Clearbit and metadata, I think, are the two top of mind for most people.
All right, Austin, your moment has arrived. We're ready to hear your question.
My microphone is free.
Test.
Yes. So I agree with you when I can't remember if it was on LinkedIn or if it was on the podcast, but you said the most B2B content isn't good. And that's a sentiment that I've held for a really long time. And for me, when I'm looking at creating, and this is much more of an art of demand marketing than it is the science, unlike a lot of the other questions. But for me, when I'm looking at creating content, what is your creative process to ensure you don't put out bad content? Or another way to get to the answer I'm looking for is, how do you find that creative hook to differentiate the content you put out versus someone else's content that, it's just getting more competitive. It's not, there isn't less content being created now.
Mm-hmm. The first thing to kind of recognize is people do not notice the bad content. They just scroll by it. Right. And so, like, yes, if I put out 100 bad posts in a row, then probably some people would stop following me. Right. But like, one in a while is fine, because it allows you to innovate. Like, there's some posts where I'm like, this is going to be my worst post ever, and it ends up being one of my best performing posts. And so, like, I think that in trying to have good content, a lot of marketers put up like quality standards that don't belong there, and it almost boxes them into just wash, rinsing, and repeat the same type of tactic. So that's something that I would encourage people to think about. When it comes to bad content, it all comes down to what is your intent. And the problem with content marketing over the past 10 years is that at the beginning, it was smart people that were subject matter experts writing blogs that people loved. And now it's uneducated people that don't understand customers that are keyword stuffing stuff for SEO. And that's the issue, is that the intent has changed. The intent initially was to help people get better. And now it's to drive more, organic rankings. So, and then the same thing goes for an ebook, right? The only reason that most companies create an ebook is so that they can promote it and get leads, not so that someone reads the ebook, learns something really helpful, and then goes and does something better. And so the way that I am able to put together content that helps people is because I basically give away all the info. We sit on here and talk for 2 hours every week, and people pay us a lot of money for the exact same advice. You know what I mean? And so those are I think those are the ways. I literally listen a ton. I listen to what people say. I get a ton of questions on LinkedIn all the time. I look at themes. I talk to a ton of people and I understand their challenges. I'm inside of a ton of Salesforce instances and I have this big view of what is actually going on. And so, but when it all boils down, the reason that I think that my content hits hard is because I'm in the market consistently and I know, and I listen a lot. And so when you listen, you can understand what people have tried that didn't work, where people are moving. And then if you're able to ask why they're moving there, then you start to understand what their current state is. And you can start to see about what they think is going to happen. And then you watch them through that process and you see whether or not they got to where they wanted to go. And so some of those things are interesting. And then just being able to see what's happening, be able to pick out the things that that people accept that just don't make any sense anymore. And then just be able to know what's better. But ultimately give people information that helps them do something better. Like the reason that Matthew's back here every week since we started is because the information that's delivered helps him. And I think a lot of people that listen to this would say the same thing, and I don't ask for anything in return. You know what I mean? So those are the keys. When companies make content, they expect something back, and that's the challenge. Any follow-up?
No, I think that's been something I've noticed that you do a lot is that there's a ton of utility in everything you put out, and that's why when I download something that's gated and I read it and it's terrible, I'm like, freak, I can't use it. So yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that from your answer that I think is another thing that I think I need to improve on is I need to talk to customers a lot more often than I am.
100%. It's whether it's right now with me talking to CMOs and demand marketers all the time. Like right now, this is a huge form of market research. Someone tells me they're trying to run content syndication. I know how much they're going to pay. Someone asks about banner ads. I know how much they're going to pay for that. And so this is market research for me at the same time because I listen. And so figure out how to create. Like at the beginning, I would write like some random person a LinkedIn message and say, hey, I'm doing market research for blah, blah, blah. This is like 2014. Hey, I'm doing market research for blah, blah, blah company. I would send 20 out and I would get 0 responses. And then I started to get better at trying to figure out how to be able to get an entry point into those conversations. Right now, having a podcast is the #1 way to get your customers to talk to you in a casual setting where they'll hopefully tell you the truth.
Great.
Awesome, man. Good to have you here.
That was a great debut question. Max had a fun e-commerce question. Come back on and ask it since you're here with us.
Yeah. Hey. So kind of mixing B2B and e-commerce. So I'm assuming you've seen Lesson Lee and Kyle Lacey launch their like Ollie Llama e-commerce brand that's kind of tied in with their actual B2B brand. So just curious, like I think there's another brand that did this. It's escaping me right now. So wondering what your thoughts are on that, like how they can actually leverage that to start building their actual business brand as well, and what direction you think that would be going in.
I think Kyle is one of the most innovative CMOs out there. Love the guy. He was on the podcast recently. We talked about a lot of things, even things that I'm like, wow, that's out of left field. You know what I mean? But they're smart. Like it's creative innovation with a demand engine that's running. And so I posted about it again. I'll just reiterate it. Like once your demand engine is running and working and growing and sustaining and contributing a lot of revenue to the business, you can do all of these things. You have a lot of freedom to, I forget the stuff they did. They wrote a book, which I think has a ton of different value, gets them into enterprise deals, builds credibility. It was also part of their culture. So like, that's great. They sent like some type of like llama thing to a bunch of people that got posted on social. And so like, who knows what the clothing brand is going to turn out to, but at minimum, like it's a brand plan and an experiment. I think marketers are so afraid to do something and fail that they would never do that stuff. I love that. We're thinking about doing, I'm just going to throw it out there. Like we're thinking about doing like a clothing thing. I think that's great. And so is there direct attribution to someone buying your shirt and then getting on your SaaS tool? No. But you'll never really know until you do some of those things, how it all plays out. Like let's just play out the cards. Let's say that they have this brand. I think they donate all of the proceeds. Don't quote me on this, but I think they donate all the proceeds to the charity that they support as a company, which I think is amazing. But let's say that a bunch of people love it. Like they love the brand, they love the quality, they love what it stands for, they love supporting the charity, whatever it is. And then you have a bunch of people in Ollie Llama, like clothing brand going around in San Francisco, and a bunch of people see it, and then it drives a lot of people into your SaaS tool. Like if I see the thought process, and I really like the level of creativity and experimentation there.
I think they had like a llama board game. I think that's
they had a board game for sure.
That's really cool. Were you gonna say something else, Max?
Cool. Good to see you, Max.
We're ready for more questions. Did we get to everything on the agenda?
It's how to choose the right company as a demand marketer.
Oh, yes.
I don't think we've covered this in that much detail. And so I'll give a little like backstory here. So in February of 2020, which wasn't that long ago, but it feels like forever ago, I was in Los Angeles with both Megan and I's good friend, Justin Welsh, and we were doing an event. And at that event, Justin and I were just kind of chatting. There was probably like 25, 30, maybe 35 revenue executives in there. It was in Santa Monica, lovely event. And he said something which was like, when you're hiring a VP of sales, they need to match the company demographics that you sell. He's like, I am an SMB SaaS person. Like, I'm not going to do well in enterprise. And I listened to him, and it was literally like this afternoon when I wrote the agenda, and I was like, we need to touch on this, because now I get it. Now, at that point, I didn't understand. I was like, I'm a marketer, I can figure this out. And it's like, no, like you actually have a specialty typically in a specific type of company, whether it's centered around a specific buyer, whether it's a specific velocity of sale. Velocity of sale is a really interesting one to me. Like we're in, product led or SMB velocity or mid-market or enterprise. Like, I don't think that I would enjoy being a enterprise small TAM marketer. I don't think that I would. And so all of you can think about that too. So that's just like from a demand standpoint, looking at the company demographics of what you want to do. If you're in product led, it's going to be a lot of, if you're doing true demand, it's going to be a ton of user acquisition, sign up stuff. And a lot of those companies, they don't even let the demand marketers cover the funnel post sign up to paid. Like there's a separate team that's covering that part of the journey. And so super acquisition focused. SMB, it's going to be super performance driven, because that's what you need to do. And they're going to have a ton of SDRs. It's going to be boom, 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 boom. I personally like mid-market because you have more flexibility. And like at some point, the SDR engine is going to get to a point where it slows down enough where you actually need to do true demand marketing. Like performance marketing is I talk to a lot of companies that it's failing them right now. And that point, a lot of companies that had got to 200 million before this kind of like process happened with performance marketing over the past 5 years, they're probably still doing it. And they got beyond the curve or whatever, where they have enough inbound demand and enough people in the market where they're going with it. But if you're not past that curve and you still need to keep growing, like that's going to be a tough proposition. And then enterprise, I just think it's too slow for me. I think it's too slow. And so that's my reflection. And then obviously, I mean, maybe Megan can cover some of this stuff too, but like after that, you have to like, I look mostly at the CEO now. When I'm, and I wish I did this when I was a manager level person. You think that your actual manager is someone that's really important, and they are. Don't get me wrong. Like your manager is super important to your success at a company, but the CEO sets everything that moves down. And so, really looking at that, it drives way more than I realized when I was young earlier in my career.
I have one thing I can add in this
please.
particular topic. I think not only when you reference the company, like whether it's mid-market or enterprise, but I agree with that. I agree with sort of the CEO and leadership, but it's also the stage of the company and where they are at in their journey. If they're, super early stage, or Series B, C, D, or public, the thing that I've seen over and over again is you can take a stellar, VP of sales, for example, and even if they're selling, they're both mid-market companies, but if it's a much earlier stage or later stage and they don't have experience in that, typically the playbook and the set of activities that you need to do as a leader is just so different. And so I think that's super common as well. You have to understand what type of environment you're able to be successful, because really great people, if they go too early or too later stage, depending on their experience and their skill set, they could fail where previously they had been really successful. So I think that's a big one that people don't often think about.
Such an important point. Like the $1 billion in revenue company, I would not do good in. There's just too much. I like having a breadth of knowledge and being able to interact with different departments and do things and experiment. And there's like too much red tape and all this other stuff in most large organizations that I just wouldn't do well.
And then asked, what would we look for in a CEO? You kind of mentioned.
And then I'll go through it. But then on the like super like seed stage company, I don't think I would enjoy that either. I guess I like playing in the middle, mid-market and like mid-stage. Super small companies, typically, I find that marketers have a tough time in those companies because it's sales. So what would you look for CEO? We'll go to you first, Megan.
For that. Well, so I think if we're looking at it through the lens of I'm a demand marketer and I'm trying to choose the right company, what qualities am I looking for in a CEO that makes me feel this is the right company to join? You've talked about this a lot, Chris, but they have to believe in and get marketing, right? They have to appreciate the function. I think it's very typical for CEOs to be either more product led or sales led. And so making sure that they get it and they understand it. I think also with marketing in particular, but it applies to other functions as well, is having the right mindset, like having the right long game, long-term mindset is really key. Because if they're in a position where they're making short-term decisions, that typically is not going to play well on the marketing side. I think those are the big ones. I think if you go across different functions, you might call out a few different things. John, you want to make a comment regarding CEOs? Come on.
Absolutely.
Come on the air. Yeah. Add to the conversation.
Yeah. I think you're both spot on. You really want to look to the CEO. It will tell you everything you need to know about an organization. And then also organizational structure. There's a young guy that I'm mentoring in some sales stuff, and he was interviewing for a marketing opportunity. And I went out and looked at their leadership team. 16 VPs, sales, biz dev, customer officers. They got all kinds of sales and business dev. And then they have a director of marketing. And that just kind of screams that that's a sales organization.
Totally.
And
You can look at headcount ratio as well.
Hey,
yeah, and so that tells me that marketing is probably underfunded. I've run sales in companies like that, and I've run marketing in companies like that. And running marketing in a company like that is not a lot of fun. It's a big, long uphill battle. So take a look at the org chart, take a look at the roles, what the titles are, and run some of those ratios through your head. It tells you a lot. And in SaaS software in particular, I'm trying to write a piece on this, but it's incredibly frustrating to me that most CEOs are pretty clueless about marketing.
Totally.
If they came up on the finance side or if they came up on the sales side, they don't really, marketing, those guys, they make the brochures and stuff, right? I mean, you hear that kind of stuff, and they don't understand the true leverage point that marketing can be and what great marketing can do for a company. And they generally won't invest in it. So,
yep. It's not coming right now, and a lot of people can get away with it because of how much money they've raised or because of how good the product is. But it's not going to be too long until you need to be able to do this in order to be successful. And so you can see some people moving along, but people will need to really figure it out, because I think the time of 100% sales focus to get to a certain revenue value and then figure out marketing at 10 million is not going to play out for that much longer. On the, what was I going to say? Shoot. It was about the CEO thing. I think this isn't 100% focused on like this quality of a CEO or not, but, it's a really interesting thing to think about your career, about getting in the right vehicle with the right people. And so if you think about it that way, like a lot of people, they're trying to sell their company and then go live on a boat, right? And if you're a manager employee, you're not going to make any money on the exit, at least nothing meaningful. And then you're probably not going to have a lot of people to work for afterwards. And so I look for, like, when I've worked for CEOs that, to be frank, like didn't really agree with their alignment, but they previously had sold a company for $500 million, right? And so looking at their records, I think, is also an interesting way to see it. I've worked for first-time CEOs, venture funded type of things, and it's sample size of one, so I'm not going to make any assessments there, but could have been better. And so track record sometimes matters too.
Prince had a follow-up question, I think he mentioned, for both you, Chris, and John, since you added so much to that conversation. What do you got, Prince?
Well, no, this is just adding to a recent conversation I was having with somebody that was interviewing at a product company. Follow up on the story that I gave you guys back a little bit back about them being in 17 years in the industry, and then all of a sudden the focus and the dynamics kind of have shifted. So yeah, a very valid point at that you look at the org chart, and that's literally what I did when I was on a Zoom call with him, trying to prep him for an interview with the CEO. And the question was basically, it's okay, I understand the org chart might be, let's say, sales heavy, or maybe just because they're in the support industry, or maybe just because they were a tech company, so to speak, product wise, they didn't really have product thinking. So they didn't have a product wing per se. And then now, so suddenly, since about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or even 5 months ago, the direction is changing. Would that still be a question for you, or would you see that as a measure of progression, so to speak? Because it seems like they are really gaining some perspective into the right direction. Because when you are a product company, you do need to have a product wing. You do need to have people that are thinking about marketing and doing demand generation, not just sales. And so that you can really bring that innovation into your product, add features, and then capitalize on the unrealized value.
I truly believe this is a case-by-case type of question, because there's a couple of different paths, right? So they haven't been doing it for 17 years, and then all of a sudden they get a bunch of funding and they want to build a product team and different things like that. honestly a recipe for disaster if you didn't bring in if you didn't like change leadership and stuff like that, because why haven't they done it over the past 17 years?
No, the leadership was changed. Let me mention that.
Yeah, and so if leadership
including the
changes and
CEO.
you take a core technology, you change leadership, and then you start to and you go and raise money, like that's potentially a recipe for success. But again, it's a case by case. The thing that I'm the small indicator. So let's just like say the company hasn't done marketing for 20 years, and then over the last 3 months they raised money and now they're starting to buy ads, and you think that is like the signal that they get marketing. It's a false positive usually.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to hear, that it's a recipe for success. Apparently they do have a substantial marketing that they're creating. And
As long as you believe in the new leaders, and you also believe in the technology put together, I think that's an interesting train to jump on.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. I'm going to share this clip with that guy.
Happy to help.
Yeah.
Do you
Cool.
want to call out for some more questions?
All right. We can go one more, or we can close.
Oh, I've got a question in from Allie. Do you want to come on the air, Allie?
Hey, yeah, I get to ask this question. I thought we were almost out of time.
Yeah, no, you got it in.
Let's do it. We're never, to be honest, just to really be clear, we're never out of time here. I would go for a while. we stop when we run out of questions.
Yeah, I've never. So I'm in that Helma grad program. I'm about.
Oh, no way. How's it going?
Yeah,
it's
it's
great
good.
that you're here. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know where you are in the program, but I'm like almost a decade ahead of you. I was the first part of that program. This is hilarious. It was an incredible experience. So grateful for it.
Like the first cohort?
Yeah, I was the first one ever. We
Yeah,
were
I
kind of
knew
like the guinea pigs.
Okay, cool.
So what's going on there?
Yeah, so 1.5 months into my marketing experience, and we were thinking about so we have a pretty technical product component.
Which company is it? Can you share?
From up here, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. I know the company.
Okay, yeah. Really technical product, really technical applications.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking today. I'm the marketing person for this product and these applications. So we were talking today about using like generalized content that's very relevant to several applications in all of these LinkedIn groups. So basically, this tube goes in big machines. It doesn't matter what the machines are detecting, but these machines can be analyzing mercury.
Yeah.
It can be gas chromatography. Like all of these machines have the same insides basically,
Mm-hmm.
and our component would solve their problem. And so we were thinking like generalized content that speaks to the inner workings of their machines, targeting their design engineers in these different application LinkedIn groups. But I don't want to be spammy. I don't want to be annoying. I see people in LinkedIn groups being really annoying. Limited.
I think you might bleed on the edge there with that one.
Yeah.
So this is an OEM sale? You want to sell it to them, and then they want to put it in 1,000 of their machines, and then they're going to sell the machines? Or
mostly, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So you're looking for a couple big accounts that standardize their product on this, and then they sell their product, and you become the supplier of a core component. It's a very common Halma distribution channel.
Yeah.
And so the LinkedIn stuff, I think I'm a big fan of being a huge part of that community and never talking about your product if that's the play. Like that's essentially what I do on LinkedIn. I mean, we talk about a lot of the stuff that we do. I guess you could argue that we like talk about the product, but like I've never had success jumping into a respiratory therapist group or a blah, blah, blah group and dropping in like, hey, we're doing a webinar on this, or I just feel like they got their own stuff going on, and you should maybe just join the group and just start to like listen.
Yeah.
I think listening is a very good initial strategy. And then perhaps like one of the things that I might do is like I keep going back to the podcast because I think there's so many good values on this to talk about how to use this tube in mercury and in this and in this. And then perhaps you can drop the podcast version in there that has a little bit more depth than just a post. That's one interesting thing. But like when it's a really weird, because this is a vendor supplier type of relationship, which lends it, especially because there's probably not a ton of people that have the problem that you're trying to solve. I'm not positive,
You're
but I
right.
think it actually probably lends itself better to sales outreach, because you basically you have a potentially very tangible ROI for their product.
In the groups.
Like direct, I think direct sales might actually be more effective.
Okay. Yeah.
It's weird. It's some of those types of things. Like I'm like talk all the time about how trade show booths are a waste of money, but like going to a trade show and meeting those 10 suppliers, I don't think you need the booth to do that. But going and having sales meetings with those 10 people at the industry conference might be your best bet for those, whatever they are, $1 to $20 million accounts that buy your stuff and put it on their products. That's the first one that comes to mind. I think a lot of the stuff that we talk about here lends itself to a productized offering that that delivers value, that doesn't need to be inserted, because you're going through product development cycles in order to get this thing in. I think there's some nuances there.
Cool. Thanks.
Do you have a follow-up? I feel like that was there was some stuff in there, but would love to be as helpful as I can.
Yeah, I mean, so they basically were like, we want to do lead gen, but they have no value propositions. Like, we're starting from like zero.
Yeah.
So like, I guess like for me, I'm working on getting those, talking with customers. But I guess like, what would be your first steps? And it might not be lead gen. That doesn't sound right to me.
I would find whatever the top 10 wish list things, and I would go and talk to the person that belongs in there and say, hey, I'm in this graduate program. Play it down. Like, I'm in this graduate program. Like, I'm trying to, figure out how this thing might work for you. Would you be able to talk to me for 15 minutes and answer some questions about like how you might use this, or what you think about it, or what you're doing right now? You'd be surprised how many people would say yes to that.
Yeah.
That's
underway, but like what to
cool.
do with that, I guess. They've no digital marketing at all.
So it depends on what you hear.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people say, this is in our product development cycle, and even if we want to change it tomorrow, we're not going to release that product for 4 years. Like, that might be the case. I don't know, but like in medical technology, if you like go in and change that, unless it's like completely broken because of the regulatory laws, they're not going to change it for a very long time. And so you might find some interesting things that you didn't know. I think it's always a first step to level set. You might also find like, we have 10 billion machines going into this certain thing, and there's a huge opportunity, and they have no solution. And then just like, I would help your reps go out and get after those.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Thanks. Sorry for these newbie questions.
No. It's not a newbie question at all. I think a lot of people are thinking about it, but when there's like very large types of deals, like sometimes it's better to just like figure out who they are, especially when this like OEM type of relationship, figure out who they are, and then just arm sales with the stuff that they need.
Cool.
I've worked in a lot of Halma companies. There's certain products inside of that portfolio that lend itself to the type of marketing that we talk about, and there's others that aren't. Cool.
Any more
Good to
questions?
see you. First off, enjoy the program. It's so cool. All right.
Oh, Allie, John Montague.
Yeah, John offered to help you some stuff, which would be great. Cool.
He's a smart one.
So let's close out there. Thanks, everyone.
I thought some world records will be broken today.
No records tonight, but always love doing this. Anyone that was new, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any like thoughts or things that we could do better, feel free to shoot those to me on LinkedIn. We're always looking to improve and continue to do whatever to have you come back and enjoy the show. So really hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Great to see you. I think that we'll be here. I don't know. I think it's the 22nd of December, and then it falls. So maybe I'm not sure if we'll do the 29th, but we'll probably most likely do the 22nd of December. And so we'll see you again next week, hopefully.
Have a good week, everyone.
Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.